Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Scout Fantasy PGA DFS. My name is Alex White. I am here with Mark Ferris. How are we doing today, Mark?
Doing good, doing good. It was a rough weekend. I was doing well to the weekend last week, but like I said, the pricing in those major tournaments are so soft. It's there's so many good lineups out there. You really got to hit the nuts.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a really tough week for myself personally. So let's just forget it ever happened, move on, and let's make some money at the Valspar. All right, everybody, let's dive into this slate. So we are at the Valspar Championships, still staying in Florida at Innisbrook Resort. It's otherwise known as Copperhead, famously known for the Snake Pit, 16, 17, and 18. Not as famous as, the Bear Trap a couple weeks ago, but it is still pretty famous. Hole 16, 17, and 18. 16 plays the first hardest hole, 17 plays is the seventh hardest hole, and 18 plays is the fifth hardest hole. So do not count your chickens before they hatch this week, guys. If you guys got some really solid lineups going into Sunday, those final few holes can definitely have a couple strokes swing for you. So, Mark, anything that you want to lay out about the course? It's a par 71. It's Bermuda. It's a little over 7,300 yards. Anything that you want to mention to kind of help us find what golfers we're trying to target this week?
Yeah, what I've read on 1 and 2 that they're talking about setting the tees up a little bit so it won't play as long. But the fairways here are narrow, so this is not going to be a bomber's course. Of course, you're going to have some guys like Dustin Johnson that can still bomb it straight, and we'll have an advantage. But with the narrow fairways, it's more about position. So, you can play the guys again this week, like we talked last week with Snedeker and Jim Furyk, and these guys that you might think are past their time, but they're not when it comes to a course like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point that Mark makes, because there are 5 par 3s on this course. So those older guys I've always been a little bit better at par 3s. They just kind of have those irons dialed in. And if they miss around the greens, they're good at scrambling. So this week there's a wide variety of golfers to choose from. I'm definitely not going to say just bombers. I'm not going to say just short game players. It's going to be a good mix this week. So we can. Mark, let's start knocking down this top tier. As always, it's always hard to kind of differentiate up here. You could have chose Rory last week. You could have chose DJ, Rahm, even Jason Day. A bunch of the big names were up there, and we have 3 of those golfers in the field this week with Day, Rahm, and Johnson. How are you tackling those 3 golfers? Any of them have not played the course. From my stats in 2014, I don't know if you have anything prior to that.
No, Jason Day is the only one that's played since he played 2013 was his last time to play there. Dustin Johnson played in 2010 and missed the cut. John Rahm's never played there. So you're talking about 3 guys with little or no history, and the course was renovated in 2016. So, even Jason Day playing back in 2013 isn't going to give him a whole lot to what the course conditions are now. I doubt the course is substantially different, because unless you blow it up and start over, if a guy's comfortable at the course, he's still going to be comfortable even with a few minor changes. But, in this case, though, Dustin Johnson, we know all 3 of these guys, lack of experience doesn't really matter for these 3 guys.
Yeah, I agree. Casey is a great example of that. He didn't play since 2014. He skipped 15, 16, and 17, and then came out and won in 2018. So it's a perfect example right there. And another perfect example of having a short memory, guys. Casey hurt a lot of us last week if we rostered him in cash or anywhere at the Players. This is a great bounce back spot. If we're talking high end guys, I think Casey, is definitely worth a shot. It was a little bit surprising. He missed, he lost strokes in approach. He lost strokes off the tee, and that's normally his strong suit. So it was a very weird week for him, but any golfer can come out and just not play their game any given week. And we saw that right there. It happened.
Yeah, 100% true. We've said that so many times. You can look at all the statistics, and over time, the statistics are going to bear out to what they are. But, they're statistics for a reason, because there's a high and a low. And, last week, I guess you saw some of the lows for Casey on some of those statistics. So that's just the way it works out.
Absolutely. So are you starting your lineups with any of those three at the top? Are you starting with Dave, Rahm, or Johnson? Are you kind of going right below them, or are you going more balanced this week? What's the approach?
Well, I found myself just playing with a couple lineups on FanDuel, and FanDuel's, again, we're back to the old way it was with FanDuel. It's a lot easier to get some of these guys in. I found that I can get 3 decent golfers in and then have $10,000 or $11,000 left. And with the pricing on FanDuel being a little bit lower, actually, I can get Dustin Johnson in there. So I will have him in a lineup or two on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I'm not 100% sure because, even I just looked there today too. If you run the last 3 guys that are below 9,000 or above 9,000 and up, which would be Lucas Glover, Henrik Stenson, and Jim Furyk, your next 3 golfers have to average 75 to 7,600. So if you go with one of the guys that are 12,000, 11,000, something like that, that number just drops. So you're getting down into the 6,000 range. And quite frankly, from what I'm seeing, there's not a whole lot of use down there.
Yeah, it's tough. I've got a few darts I'll definitely mention towards the end of the pod to help you pay up on DraftKings. But FanDuel, it definitely is easier to cram in a prettier looking lineup to the eye. But last week, I thought my lineup, there was a 0% chance, of how good it looked. But I mentioned that on the pod. I was like, your lineups are all going to look great, and you're going to be surprised come Saturday who actually made the cut. There's a lot of big names that missed the cut, and the Players does that every year. I got to remember to control my bankroll at the Players next season because every year it seems to bite me in the butt. That's a tough tournament to nail down.
Any major is a tough tournament to nail down. You never know what's going to happen. There's, how many times is in a major and again, this isn't a major, but it's treated like one. And you see these guys come from nowhere and win it. How often does that not happen? I mean, look all the way back to John Daly when he was the 2nd or 3rd alternate getting into the PGA and won the damn thing. So, what do you know?
Yeah, I mean, Furyk was actually a late add to DraftKings too. Yep. So he wasn't actually showing up in my stat model. So I was very frustrated. He was in my write-up. He ended up making it in just based off like looking at his name. But yeah, he actually wasn't uploaded on my stat site until like late Wednesday night, and I never looked at him again. So I'm a little bit frustrated because he might have been in my core because after going back and he rated in like the top 10 of my model, and I was like, oh man. I just missed a big one. He's a great cash play at that price, and I mean he showed out. So let's actually drop down to that Furyk range. So start with 9K. We have Lucas Glover, who was a bitter disappointment last week. Just didn't putt well, didn't play well around the green. He still gained strokes through approach like he always does. He just had a Lucas Glover week. Are you hopping back on that train? And then we'll bump all the way up to Webb Simpson, who was last year's Players Champion.
Well, I mean, Lucas Glover, he might be in a lineup. I'm not 100% sure at this point. But some of the guys down there, I mean, of course, Furyk, he's going to be so daggone popular this week just because of the way he played last week. And, he's got good course history here. He's never missed a cut. He's got 4 top 10s in the last 10 years, 5 top 15s, 6 top 15s, whatever the number comes out to. But, he's going to be popular. I like him, but he's going to be way popular. Actually, one guy that I think I'm looking at too is in the 9,500 range. And I think, we had a hard time with him last week. You and I didn't really agree on him. Was Patrick Reed. He's another one that hasn't missed a cut. I'm a lot more comfortable, I think, at this point playing Patrick Reed and Jim Furyk and than I am, a Lucas Glover or a Henrik Stenson, even though I like Henrik too. Henrik loves this course, but there's just something with Henrik's game that isn't the same as it used to be.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you this week, Mark. I am choosing Patrick Reed as if I was doing one and done, he would be my golfer this week. I really just like his game and what it's setting up for. He's had a couple of disappointing Sundays the past few weeks. But, I mean, even if I really do see a top 10 for Reed again. I just don't see where he's going wrong in his game right now. He's just playing very well. These greens are smaller than tour average, so what Patrick Reed excels at is around the green game, and he has for year after year. He's so good with the short game. If he misses these small greens, which a lot of these golfers do, he is the one I would put my money on to get up and down, if not chip in off the green. And you've seen that with great course history from Reed. And at 9,500, I think that's a great price. I think that's a good price to even start your lineups with. If you're not going to pay up for those top guns, I think Reed is a really solid option. In GPP and cash, I could see his ownership between 15 to 18%. I don't see it getting over 20, just because some people just don't like Patrick Reed as a person or as a golfer.
Yep, and frankly, I prefer Patrick Reed over Gary Woodland, and Gary Woodland's $400 more. And it's not that I dislike Gary Woodland; I just like Patrick Reed more, and I'm saving $400. So that's something there. Now, the only stipulation other than the ownership on Furyk that I have, I just want to put out there, because it's always a potential, is the letdown after the emotional. It was emotional for him last week, so he was drained. So that's you could have a letdown this week just simply because of that, and it has nothing to do with the way he's playing, because he is playing great. But you just at your own risk play him, because like I said, he's going to be popular, I think.
Yeah, I think he will be more so on FanDuel at 10K than at 9,200 on DraftKings. That seems like a high price for Furyk, but in his current form, after that showing last week, his last two tournaments, I think he was 7th and then 2nd. So, it's pretty solid for a guy of his age, and he has good course history. I like Furyk a lot this week. And I actually like Usti right above him. I think he's going to be the one underlooked in that price range. I think it'll be Reed, Stenson, or Furyk as far as ownership, Patrick Reed, Stenson, and then Usti is going to kind of come in at like 4 to 6% owned, I'd say. People are going to forget about him. And I just think on these tough courses, this ranks 6th toughest course on the PGA Tour, he always shows up. He's just a really good at these difficult courses. He's great at avoiding bogeys. He might not score, 10 to 20 under, but 15 to 20 under, but he's the type of golfer that can, 8 under, 12 under. And that's really all you need at this tournament. Cut line is, since 2013 has been +1 or worse. So you're looking, if it stays at that difficulty, I think Usti is an awesome call to make the cut, and he's a good weekend player. So I like Usti in that same range.
He's a solid golfer. It's just that there's nothing flashy about him. So he goes, like you said, he goes overlooked a lot because he's not in the media. He's not somebody that draws a lot of attention to himself. He just plays golf. And he was playing well early in the season, I think, and then he had a couple of struggles, but he's definitely a solid play.
Yeah, and then any love for Sergio or Webb, because if people aren't paying all the way up, I think, if they're not going to go like 2 9K players, they're going to go one, low 10K and then a high 8K, and that'll be kind of a common build. I really like knocking down 2 of the 9K guys, whether it's like a Reed Usti or Reed Furyk or Reed Stenson. I kind of like those builds. But do you have any, love for Simpson or Garcia?
I like Garcia. I think Garcia is going to play well. Garcia plays well at this course. If I can see this correctly, he's only, he hasn't played one time in the last 5 years, but since 2011, his worst finish is 16th for the 4 years that he played. So Sergio can play the course as well. I like Webb Simpson too. It's just that somehow I think that Sergio's game on this course is going to tend to get more points than what Webb Simpson will get, because I think Sergio will probably be a lot more volatile, and they might end up in the same place, which means Sergio makes more birdies. Webb's going to be more consistent. So I think from a point standpoint, you might get more points out of Sergio.
Yeah, I think that's a great call as far as, DraftKings points go. And if you guys are playing FanDuel, it's something worth mentioning. 5+ birdies on FanDuel gives you an extra 4 points a round. So if you have a good scorer that you think is going to get 5 birdies in a round, that extra 4 points, if they get that all 4 rounds, that's 16 extra points, guys. That's a lot. That really adds up. And this isn't a scores course. You won't see that often. But it can definitely happen. So, if your guy starts at like 4 under and then, he ends up at even at the end of the round, if he gets those, 5 birdies, that stuff adds up big time. Actually, when my lineup wasn't great when I won the $1,500 a couple weeks ago, but I had so many golfers that had, that they might have been like top 40 in the tournament, but they had so many rounds with 5+ birdies that their points racked up quick. So that's worth noting on FanDuel. When you are making builds there, make sure you have guys that can score. Put birdies in bunches. I don't know if you knew that, Mark, but it's something that I noticed that it plays a big role. It's almost like that 3-streak birdie on DraftKings, how you get that extra point. That's kind of FanDuel's edge there.
Yeah, I knew FanDuel had one of those. I didn't realize that it was such a large discrepancy between the 1 point and the 4-point bonus. But yeah, that's a huge number.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, 16 points would be big if they get that all 4 rounds. Even 2, I mean, extra 8 points adds up quick, guys. If you get that 3 golfers, that's an extra 24 points. That's the difference between 1st and 8th,
Yeah, I mean, even on DraftKings, I mean, some of these tournaments, the points are so close because I know Al and I talk about this, winner take all, the $1 winner take all that we play, some lineups in just to help us set lineups mainly and just for the fun of it. But, you can be in 340th place and 120th place is only 4 points higher than you, or 5 points or 10 points. I mean, it's not much. So, all the points you can get, you need to get. And if those bonuses do it, then do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's just a good way to gain an edge, guys. That's just some game theory. So, focus on that stuff. It's not all about finishing position. This is, once again, a points game, not a finishing game. All right. So kind of highlight out of that top range 9K, just pick your 2 favorite golfers. Or let's say 3, since we've already kind of broken it down. Give our listeners 3 of your favorite, and then 1 person you're going to stay away from more than others.
In the 9,000 to 9,900 range?
9,000 all the way up to DJ.
9,000 all the way up to DJ.
Yeah, give your favorite play in that range.
My favorite play is going to be Patrick Reed. I think my second favorite play is going to be Sergio. And other than price, I'd go DJ, but I'm probably going to stay away. I think Louis Oosthuizen as well there. Probably the guy I'm going to stay away from is probably going to be Jon Rahm. And not because Jon Rahm is a bad player, but we all saw that Jon Rahm can melt down in a heartbeat right now. He's better than he used to be in keeping these emotions under control. But Sunday, he was pretty volatile last week. So given the fact he has no course history here and the difficulty of this course, I can see the frustration just blowing up on him this week.
Yeah, great point. So that's something I wanted to bring up. Jon Rahm actually has a new, like an emotional coach, and the guy that coaches him now used to be a Marine, and he was a bomb diffuser. So that like a high stress job. So he actually has a coach for that because he knows emotions have knocked him down on leaderboards over the weekend. So that's something he is working on. And he's actually mentioned that in interviews. So you're seeing Jon Rahm finish a little bit better. I mean, obviously Saturday was phenomenal. He shot 8 under, and then he kind of blew it on Sunday. But, if he doesn't shoot 8 under, like, people aren't talking about Rahm like they are. They're not, maybe he shoots 3 under on Saturday. He's not even in the conversation. And people forget about him this week. Now I think people might be on him, and I think that's a good call. I'm going to fade Woodland in this top area. It's just not really a great fit for Gary. I'm not saying he won't make the cut. I think he will, but I just don't see him doing a bunch of scoring.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all because, like we said there earlier, I'd much rather spend $400 less and go to Patrick Reed than I would Gary Woodland.
Yep. So my favorite play, it's hard agreeing because it might bite us in the ass. It's Patrick Reed. I really like him at 95. I just think that price is super fair. I love Furyk, but I just think the ownership. So I'm going to pivot to Usti at 93 for like more of a tournament option. And then it's hard to say like no to Paul Casey back-to-back weeks. He's not the type to just miss cut after cut. And I hope that he goes overlooked. I hope people pivot, Reed 100% over Casey, and you might just gain an ownership edge. Casey was like 45% owned in cash last week. He might be like 7 to 12% owned in any like cash or even GPP this week. So do not overlook his name, even though that price went up about $1,800. He deserves it. He was the last champion. He's already won this season. Casey's a good golfer. He just had a bad week, so don't completely take him out of your player pool.
Yeah, and you could probably put Casey and Reed in a lineup together and still make a decent lineup at the $98,000 range.
Yep, you absolutely
not have the big names.
Yep, I have a couple builds with that, and it works out pretty well. You'd be surprised what you can get with that. All right, so let's break down this 8K. Let's just start, since it's such a big range. Let's go. Actually, it's not that big this week. Let's just go 8 to 9K.
Well, we'll just do the same thing there. I'll give you my two favorite guys in that one. Of course, one is Jason Kokrak, and then I also like Brandt Snedeker again this week.
Yeah, so Sned's last year when he caught fire, it was back-to-back-to-back weeks, and then he ended up. Was it the Wyndham that he won? What did he win? Was it the Wyndham?
I can't remember without looking. There's too many tournaments to remember.
Yeah, there is a lot. It might have been the Wyndham. I think it was, but the week before that he was like T7, and then he went like first, and then the next week he came in at like 20th. So he's the type of golfer that you kind of want to ride when he's hot. I like Sneds. He's not my favorite play in that range. I do like Kokrak. I think he's awesome for cash. His approaches, like he gained 8 strokes 3 weeks ago, then 6 strokes, and then 4 strokes. And I mean, on these tough courses, if he's going to continue to gain strokes through approach, it's hard to bet against a guy that, you know, just needs to putt pretty decent for a couple rounds to make the cut. And he's been doing a lot of his scoring on the weekends too. So he's that golfer on FanDuel that you might see come in like 40th, but he might get you 5 birdies every round and get you that extra point. He's like a perfect example of that.
That's right.
Any love for Kisner? He's been rattling off like top 25s like it's going out of style.
Yeah, Kisner's in my write-up. In fact, my article might already be posted because I'm on the road most of the day tomorrow, so I wanted to make sure that Renner had it. But no, I've got Kisner in there as one of my favorite plays there too, because, you know, when we say just pick your 2 favorite, that doesn't mean we don't have other favorites. You know, my reason to go to Snedeker is just he's a ball control guy, and, you know, this is a placement course, so I think he can play well. But Kisner is turning in, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week. He's becoming the Kisner that he was a couple of years ago, and he was just lock and load every time he played. And the way he's playing now, he deserves to be played.
Yeah, I agree. I think 8,500 is a very fair price for him too. I mean, but what he does is he doesn't put up more than like 3 to 4 birdies around. He's just really good at avoiding bogeys. And he might not be the person that you want to win you a GPP. He might be that kind of like, okay, I have 8,500 left. I want 6 of 6 through the cut. I'm going.
Right. But he also might be that guy that he might move you from 20th place to 16th place just because he's so consistent.
Exactly. And that's something, you know, that place differential might matter more so with a guy like Kisner than it would with like a Kokrak. So that's something to think about, you know, just when you're pinpointing these guys. One of them might have a better chance to make the cut, but the other one might have a better chance to win you that GPP or that big tournament. So be careful, you know, in this range. I've heard Kisner's name on every single thing I listen to, and I got a feeling that he might be over like the top owned in that 8K range. I'm not willing to pay 8,500 for Kisner if he's going to be 28 to 30% owned. If I can get him at 16 to 19, yeah, that's where I'll play him. But anything more than that, I'm kind of going to pivot and stay away from. So ask questions on Slack, guys. It's a good time to mention that Slack chat. If you have questions about ownership or, you know, a pivot off of Kisner, just ask us. We'll do the research for you. If you have a certain golfer you really want to know about that we haven't mentioned on the pod or in our articles, that's the best place. Just ask questions. That's all we can ask, guys. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, and even on there, Alex and I don't agree on everything, but it gives you guys both sides of the coin, you know, because some people are going to agree with me, some are going to agree with Alex, and it doesn't really matter. It's just you're getting all the information, and that's the best thing about it. Another guy that's right there around Kisner, and he might go underlooked or overlooked other than the fact that he's got a decent course history and he's playing well, is Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore's been playing well since the Waste Management. I think he missed a cut there, and he hasn't missed one since. and he loves this course. He's got let me look here. Ryan Moore, he missed a cut last year, which was an anomaly, but then he was 18th, 3rd, and 5th in the 3 previous years. So Ryan Moore can play this course as well, and I think his game is where it should be at this point.
Yeah, he actually ranks out top 5 in my model. I love Ryan Moore this week. He's top 5 in approach. He's number 2 in bogey avoidance, which is important at a course like this. And he is top 5 in scrambling, which actually surprised me on courses that play difficult. So I love Ryan Moore, and I think it's an awesome price. Honestly, it might be expensive, and people are going to fade away from him because of it. They might pivot to like a Kisner and even go up to RCB instead of him. And I'm going to take full advantage of that. I think Ryan Moore is an excellent play. So good call there, Mark. I definitely agree with that. I like Adam Hadwin. I know he had an off week, but he plays well on courses that he plays well on. And you've seen that at the Desert Classic. He's the course horse there. It's a par 71. So this is a par 71. There's 4 par 5s. There's 5 par 3s. Very similar layout. And that's just where Adam Hadwin takes advantage of. And I honestly think after his missed cut, he might be the lowest owned in this 8K range. And I think Adam Hadwin's an awesome call. Right now, his game is a little bit different. He's not doing as well on approaches as I would want going into this tournament, but any given week, the player can flip a switch and just be the player you want him to be. And that happens all the time with certain courses, with certain golfers. So I really like Adam Hadwin at 8,300. Anybody else that you're like fading? I've heard Charles Schwartzel name mentioned too often this week. I just don't think he's the same golfer as he used to be. I'm staying away from him. What do you think?
I'm not much on his current his current form's not horrendous. I've got guys on here that are a lot worse, but I'm kind of staying away from him too. You said Adam Hadwin. I do like him. I mean, we talk about corollary courses, and the course for the Desert Classic is a corollary course to this one. So he plays well at the Desert Classic. He plays well here. That just emphasizes the point that we make every week. Some guys just like certain courses and certain styles of courses that fits their game. One guy that I'm probably going to avoid, although just from the excitement standpoint, I'd really like to play him, is Bubba. But these fairways are so narrow. I don't know if Bubba's going to end up on the fairway or he's going to end up in the next county.
Yeah, he's a tough egg to crack this week. I think I'm going to stay away too. It's a little bit too much I would like to pay for him. I would pay for him at 8K. I'm not paying for him at 89. He's only really played it once in the past 5 years. He only missed the cut by a stroke, so he was like on that cut line. I just don't see it. Like you said, tight fairways and Bubba don't really go well together. Tree line fairways and Bubba don't go well together, and these are tree line fairways. Yep. I think that's a good call. He is the person to kind of stay away from. But with only 1 year of course history, he has been doing a really good job of making the cuts this year. He's not like all over the place like he normally is. He's like win, top 5, miscut. Top 10, top 20, miscut. This year he's kind of just making the cut and plodding along. So I don't think he's a bad call, but he's definitely worth fading in this at that price. I think that's a good call, Mark. Any love for Brandon Grace? I'm starting to kind of like him a lot. I just think that on a course that plays difficult, he always tends to show up. He is kind of a low ball flight player who puts it in the fairway, and then he's shown it with course history too. He has a T8 last season. He's played well a couple times this season. Was it at the Desert Classic that he took second? Let me look at that.
I think we talked about him there.
Yeah, if you want to talk about something, because if it is, then that's really worth mentioning. Because if that's a corollary course and he took second at Desert Classic, that kind of proves my point even more that this is the type of course that he plays well on. Just looking at my stats right now, Bermuda is his best green, and Mr. Bermuda. He actually plays best on difficult courses out of any other course. And let's see. Sorry, guys. One moment. Took 8th at Valspar, and then Farmers, PGA. No, that was the Waste Management that he took second. It was not the Desert Classic. He did not play the Desert Classic. Okay. But then, he went second, 28th, miscut, 33rd, and then 72nd at the Players. Last week was the only week, though, that he lost strokes through approach, and that was at the Players, which is a tough course. So, I mean, I just think he's a good option at 8K. He might run under like 6% ownership, so he's a good GPP option. He's a good talent, and I like him on tough courses. He's kind of like an Usti. He'll go overlooked. They're very similar golfers. They're Euro golfers that people like to play, but they're scared to play.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot of these guys that are on the European tour, unless you follow it like we do or some of the other guys do, you've heard the name, but you don't know much about the game. And Brandon Grace is an exceptional European player. So, it would not surprise me at all for him to come out and finish in the top 20 here.
Yep, he's done it before. Anybody, let's go 75 and up. So we're starting at Graham McDowell, or actually Chesson Hadley, all the way up to my man, JT Postman.
Yeah, I love JT this week. You've got me to the point where I've just, the guy makes cuts. I mean, the way he's playing, he deserves to be played at about any price that he is. I mean, they want to charge for him. I mean, you're not going to see him in the $10,000 range unless he starts knocking off some wins here. But, if he's going to stay in the between 7,500 and 8,500, you play JT Poston every week.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And they completely mispriced him on FanDuel. He's 8,300 on FanDuel. So he allows you to pay up. Like, I've got lineups with DJ in them because I have Poston in there, and it's like, DJ, Furyk, Reed. Like, I've got stacked lineups because Poston's so cheap on FanDuel. Mm-hmm. I just don't understand what they're doing over there. Last week, he was like 7,600. He was like the bottom 15 golfers as far as pricing, and he was top 25. And once again, I'm beating my head, like, why didn't I play more Poston? I mean, he's proving to me that he is a better golfer than he is being priced every single week. I am going to line him up until he disappoints. I said that last week. I under-owned him. I will not make that mistake again until he destroys me like Lucas Glover did.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, again, like the first couple of weeks, I think we talked about it. I wasn't as high on JT Poston as you were. But, I've seen it every week, and you just can't argue with the results.
Yeah, and I mean, he's played here in 2017 and got T14, so he has a little bit of course history. He's played well on this course. He plays well at difficult courses, and let's see, Desert Classic, he took 7th. That's our corollary course, guys. He took 7th there. So there's a reason that he likes this course, and you know why? It's because he ranks number 1 in par 3s gang. There's 5 par 3s on this course. It makes sense. So stats are lining up, price is lining up. I think JT Poston is a killer call this week. Mark and I are both on board. I mean, I don't see why you don't play him at that price. I really don't.
And this is all the more argument I think that we sort of made, but didn't definitely make there early. I'm probably going to go more balanced than I am anything else. And right there's why. I mean, you can get a guy at $7,500 and a Ryan Moore at $8,700, and you can still load that lineup with guys right around there. So yeah. The balanced lineup, I think, just might be the way to go. You're running the risk of one of those top guys pulling off the win, but so be it.
Yeah, and I mean, I like right under him. I like Sungjae Im again. I think he's another good fit for this course. He's solid through and through. There's really not a hole in that kid's game. And there's a reason that he was the money leader on the web.com tour last year. He led the money from start to finish. He started really strong and just was consistent throughout the entire season. And this kid just doesn't stop golfing. He takes like a week off and then he plays like 7 tournaments in a row. Last year, he played 16 tournaments straight. Like, he just loves golf. And he had a hole-in-one last week. I don't know if you knew that. Did you see that? Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. But he was one of the reasons that the cut line actually got pushed to that -1. He lost a few strokes very late in that tournament. I thought he was going to have a comeback on that Friday to make the cut. And I mean, hopefully that actually takes people off him because, if his approaches are on so good that he can, hole-in-one a par 3, and we got 5 par 3s here, I'm in on him. I love him at 7,700.
Yeah, he disappeared. He disappeared for a couple of weeks there. Just didn't play as well. But I think, and I don't know if it was one of the early articles in the season or if it was one of the early season tournaments before we started doing the live stream and the articles. It might have been on Slack chat, but I made the comment that he was priced around 7,200 or 7,300, and I think my comment was, get him now because he's not going to stay at that price forever. and we've seen him go up. Well, now, he's still, what is he here? He's 7,700. I'm telling you, this guy at 7,700, get him now, because before long, he's going to be in the mid 8,000 range constantly.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more with that. He'll fall into he kind of reminds me when Kevin Na was really, really solid. They're very similar in their games, just solid through and through. They're not super long off the tee. They're not super good at approach. They're just good at everything. And when it all comes together, I mean, you can see top tens. It actually brings me to Kevin Na. He's got a really good course history here at 7,800, and he is I haven't heard his name mentioned at all. I like Kevin Na, and he might not be the same golfer this year, but at 7,800, he can pop and be like top 5 and be like, oh wow, Kevin Na's back.
Yeah,
this might be that week,
Well, the Kevin Na that you're talking about, I think I saw that Kevin Na in the 2008 Ryder Cup at Valhalla. I think that was the year that I forget who he was playing, but he put a beat down on him, and they were done by 12.
Yeah.
I can't remember who he was playing, but he throttled him.
And he is the type of golfer, like he might be the first round leader, and you're like, oh wow, Kevin Na, first round leader. That actually doesn't surprise me. So I think he's a solid option at 78. I even like Tyrell Hatton, who's never played this course. I think he's a decent fit for it. Might go overlooked. He's just a good golfer. Plain and simple, a good golfer. And I think 79 is fair. He's definitely a GPP play, but do not overlook him at that price. Any love for Hatton? You're just kind of in the same boat. Like, don't overlook him, but don't make him like your core play, right?
Yeah, I like Tyrrell Hatton. I love Tyrrell Hatton as a player. I think when you get to the British Open, I'm all over him. He's another European player that's a solid player. Then when it comes down to head-to-head or major competition, he's a little bit like Ian Poulter. He just lights it on fire, and he'll take you out in a heartbeat. And he's a solid player. He's probably more likely than not to make the cut, so it'd be a solid number, solid play for you this week. I just wouldn't load up on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely be firing up with some GPPs. He actually might make my write-up as well. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into Tyrell and then release that article tomorrow, but there's a good chance he makes it. I just think that might be a little bit of a mispriced, or a price to take advantage. Maybe not a misprice, but a price to take advantage of.
And I think Graham McDowell might be another one to take advantage of his price too, if he goes back to playing the way Graham McDowell can play.
7,500. Yeah, that is a fair price for Graham. I haven't dug too deep into him. I need to kind of figure out where his game's at. I know he hasn't been playing great recently, but he's that type of golfer that plays well on certain courses. He's very similar to Adam Hadwin in that fact. They just like courses that they like. And
he hasn't missed a cut in these last 4, but he had an MDF. He hasn't finished, above like 40th.
Okay.
In the last 3 tournaments, but he's still a solid player.
Yeah. Anybody under that 7,500 range that you're looking for? Anybody you want to mention? Anybody that's worth, really trying to narrow down? Because, if you're paying up for these 9K players, we're going to have to find something in this low 7K, if not high 6K range to really, narrow in on and make part of our core. I think Joel Dahman is a pretty solid, like when he plays well, like you saw it last year, he would string together top 25 of the top 25. And he just showed out at the Players, took 12, gained over 4 strokes through approach, which he's normally good at. He gained strokes tee to green. He gained strokes off the tee. He gained strokes around the green, and he gained strokes putting. He did not miss strokes anywhere. It was a very solid 4 days of golf for Joel Dahman. But his biggest thing was approach, and that always has been. So when he starts striping it, I love buying into some Joel Dahman. I think 74 is a pretty decent option for Joel.
No, I agree with you on that. I also think that a fair price at 7,200 is Sung Kang. He's been playing really well, and he's played well on all the courses in Florida. So again, we're still in Florida. It's a little bit narrower course maybe, but I think Sung Kang's a solid play. Joaquin Neiman, Bud Cauley, all right there around each other. All 3 of those guys, I think, could be solid fillers for you.
Have you thought any about Nick Taylor this week?
I haven't really looked at Nick Taylor.
So he's coming off AT&T was 28th, Genesis 33rd, Honda 30th, and then the Players 16th. He gained 8.2 strokes through approach last week. He was ranked second behind Dustin Johnson in approach. That's pretty impressive for a 7,300 golfer who's rattled off top 40s in 4 weeks. And then he only has, at the Desert Classic, he took 40th, which is our corollary course. He gained over 3 strokes through approach at that course. So I think 7,300 Nick Taylor might be a good GPP option.
He's only missed 2 cuts in the last 12 weeks. So, now he hasn't played all those weeks, but he's only missed 2 cuts. And if you believe in patterns, his pattern here is miscut 62nd, miscut 24. So 24 miscut, 62 miscut should be a number in there on the next one if you believe in patterns. So, and he's playing well. So at that price, doesn't take much to reach value. You can get 10x in a heartbeat if he makes it to the weekend.
Yeah. All right. What about Dylan Fratelli? Is the name worth mentioning at 7,100. He's a Euro golfer. Took 28th at the Desert, which is who kind of we're going off that corollary. He actually lost strokes through approach at the Desert Classic, but still ended up top 28. He lost over 2 strokes through approach, so everything else in his game was solid. He's kind of a wishy-washy golfer, but I feel like he could be the name that goes overlooked in that 7K range.
Yeah, I know. That's a good name too. There's a bunch of guys. When we get into this price range, just so everybody's clear, no matter who you pick, you're probably taking somewhat of a risk. These are not anywhere near a sure thing, but you just need to try to find the guys that you think are going to make the cut, guys that are going to play solid, and it allows you to get some higher priced guys in there. Another one right there around Dylan Fratelli. You got Trey Mullinex and Sam Burns. Both of those are solid options.
I like both of them, and I especially like Mullinex. I just think his T to green game is very, very solid. He's gained like over 5 strokes in his past 5 events through tee to green. He missed the cut at the Players, not by much though, and he lost over 4 strokes putting. So it was his putter that really destroyed him. The greens here are going to be, I'm assuming, a little bit slower. I don't really know on the stent meter. Do you have any judge of character as far as
No, I haven't really looked. I just know they're overseeded with POA.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be as, it might be a little bumpier.
Yep, it will be. But yeah, I don't know as far as the stent meter as speed goes, but sometimes speed with these younger golfers like Mullinex really mess with them, mess with their, reads. And Poet can mess with reads too with how bumpy it is. So you really don't know.
He finished 8th last year.
Yeah,
finished 8th here last year. So
yeah, actually I didn't see that, so that plays to my point even more. And he took 34th at the Desert Classic, so he played our corollary course decent. I think he's a decent option at anyone.
Well, Sam Burns was 18th at the Desert Classic.
He took what? 18th?
Sam Burns, if I'm looking correctly here, if Mullinex was 34th, Burns was 18th, and he finished 12th here last year. So
and that's
lining up.
Yeah, 18th. And he was another golfer that lost over 3 strokes through approach at the Desert Classic. But he putted the lights out. And sometimes it's not all about, approach and getting on the green. It's about what you do when you're on the green. So any way you can do it to get in there is great. Sam Burns is not a bad call as well. He's just kind of in a funk right now. Miscut, 73rd, 54th. But at his last event, he gained over 8 strokes in putting, which is asinine. That's just a crazy amount. That means he was knocking in putts left and right. But that might have been the reason he made the cut, and he still took 54th. So his approaches seem to be off right now. I actually think I'm going to stay away from Burns, but I do like Mullinex at that price. Anybody, Roberto Castro is kind of a name I'm interested in.
Yeah.
At 71, what do you think about Roberto?
I think I have him. If he's not in my write-up, he's mentioned in my write-up, and I know that I looked at him pretty hard and doing a lineup or two. I'm not against that. Now, the one guy that it might be a little bit lower than him, I read some things on him and it sounds good, is Roger Sloan. Guy has never played this course, But if you look at his current form, he's 23rd, 30th, and 2nd. He's a Canadian, I believe, and he's playing well. So, you know, at $7,000, he might even be $6,900. Let me see. He is $7,000. That's a heck of a price for a guy that could come out and you know, finish top 20.
Yeah, another took 12th at Desert Classic, so he kind of lines up for this course as far as par 71 in length. I mean, 2nd Puerto Rico Open, 30th at the Honda, 23rd. So, I mean, as far as current form goes, I think that's a solid option. I actually have him, I think, a couple times in some low $1 tournaments. Why not? I mean, like I said, this is one of those courses that ranks 6th out of 50 courses on the PGA Tour in difficulty. All the golfers that you think are going to make the cut are not going to make the cut. Newsflash, guys. You're going to have to take some chances. So golfers like this are definitely worth those chances. I think that's a decent call. Honestly, form is great. He's good through approach. He's good off the tee. It might line up well. If the putter gets hot, then he could be in the top 15. I think it's a good call, Mark. I do like Vaughn Taylor again. I'm just going to keep riding him. He had another decent showing last week. Kind of fell short on Sunday. Shot like a 76, which is a tough round, but he was under par his first 3 rounds, ended up top 40ing. But he had a lot of birdies and definitely paid off his price. He was like 6,500 and shot like, probably scored like 72 DraftKings points. He was over 10x. So I like Vaughn Taylor at 68. Under him in that 6K range, I like Julian Etulain at 6,300 and Ryan Blom also at 6,300 for some real deep darts. I just kind of think that Etulain is a good. He's almost like a cup maker, and that's crazy to say for a golfer that's 6,300. But he's been, you know, top 40 in tournaments. Not a huge scorer, but I just think is a decent call. And even Jonas Blix at 6,200 is worth a look.
Jonas, I was going to mention. Etulain's name is just fun to say. But I tell you what, two other guys they're higher than this, and one I like, the other one I like with hesitation. I do like Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark's got some good form going. He finished 18th at the Desert Classic. I mean, he got DQ'd last week because I believe he signed the wrong scorecard or something, but it wasn't a great number. So really, you know, but still, you know, I mean, he's got a 7th and a 10th prior to that. So I like Wyndham Clark. The other one, and I say this with hesitation, his course history here is awesome, but his current form, quite frankly, sucks. And that's Jason Duffner. You know, again, if we use the Adam Scott logic, me saying Jason Duffner sucks, he'll come out and light it up this week. So, you know, again, I mean, this he missed a cut last year, but my God, he was 24th, 27th, or 24th, 21st, 10th, 28th. He's lit this course on fire when he's played previously when he's playing well, but right now he's not playing well. So, you know, again, if you really want to deep dive and take a risk, maybe Jason Duffner is somebody that nobody else will touch.
Yeah, I'm not touching him. Ever since the Dude Wipes sponsorship, I'm good. I'm good on Jason Duffner.
Yeah, we talked about that.
No, I mean, if you're going off course history, there's no better player, no better golfer in this low price range to target than Jason Duffner. There's something off with him right now, like something seriously off with him right now. It's kind of like Spieth. There's just something going on, and it's not good, and it's not going in the right direction. He's really not even showing flashes of the old Duffner. It's just weird. And I don't know why. He's losing strokes through approaches. He's not putting the ball off the tee in a good position. Rory Sabatini, though, you always say his name. You like Rory. He took T5 last year. He had a pretty good showing at the Players last week. He was in the top 20 going into Sunday. I think he faded a little bit. But he showed good ball striking, played very well. Any thoughts on Rory at 69? I mean, obviously, when we get to this range, there's no real thoughts besides go with your gut and kind of, you know, believe it and just don't second guess it. If you want it, just do it.
Well, Sabatini's similar to the way I feel about Poulter. You know, the guy, Sabatini, once he starts, he's not going to quit. So he may shoot bad. He may be near the cut line, but he's going to fight all the way to the 18th hole to make that cut. He might not always make it, but you don't have to worry about a guy packing it in and just blowing things everywhere and not worrying about what score he makes. Sabatini always likes he likes to, if he plays well for himself, I think that's less of a disappointment than if he doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, and last year he really did it around the green and on the green. He gained over 4.5 strokes around the green and then 4 or almost 5 strokes through putting. It wasn't through approach, and it is not his game. He's not a great approach player. He's just good when he gets around the green. So if he can string something like that together, I think he's a decent option. It's just another name worth mentioning. But probably my favorite plays in that low, like 6K range. If I was going to go real low, it would probably be Julian Etulain. It's just kind of a deep dive, somebody I think that will make the cut and help you pay up if you want to pay up. But I like Mark's call on going balanced this week. I think there's enough ownership differentiation you can do in that middle range to kind of create a unique lineup, with like Ustis and Graces, Hattons. I just said all Euro players, but seriously, people don't like to play Euro players. Fratelli, all those names just go overlooked because people don't have enough information on them. They're just afraid to play them.
Right.
All right, Mark. Let's switch it up this week. Do you want to choose a whole cash lineup or a whole GPP lineup?
I'll do the GPP.
All right. Then cash is for me. Give me one moment while I pull it up, and then that's what we will do. Once again, guys, Mark, tell them where they can find us while I'm looking this up.
Well, you can find us both on Slack chat, which if you're a member of Scout Fantasy Sports, it's free. Just get to wherever it is, still on the right-hand side, I think, of the website, and it'll take you right to the link. And we're both on Twitter. I'm at Ferris1967, and it's at Coach White DFS.
That's right. Perfect. And that gave me enough time. Thanks, Mark. Like you said, catch us on Slack. Let's get started. So my cash lineup, I'm going to start with none other than Jim Furyk at 9,200. I just think he's a very solid option at that price. And it seems so much to pay for Jim Furyk, but he's in great form, and I don't really see him missing the cut at this course. I'll be shoveling those words back into my mouth next week. I also I don't know how I didn't mention him. I really like Russell Knox for cash this week. His approach game is just unparalleled this year. He's gained over 3 strokes through approach in like 7 tournaments in a row. He is just lighting those irons up. And I'm going to ride that hot streak. I think 8,100 is a good price for Russell Knox. So I'm going to pick Russell. I also like in that lower to kind of give us a little bit of salary relief. JT Poston. It's not really salary relief, but I just don't see why you don't play him at 7,900. Let's see. Anybody else? I like Sungjae M at 77. The guy, like Mark said, he's going to be up there in price here coming soon. Let's get him while he's not up there. 77 playing. Even ZJ. We didn't mention ZJ. So do you have any thoughts on ZJ? I just think that something's got to click for him soon, like really click. He's playing okay. He's not playing as good as he used to or as consistent as he used to, but he's still making cuts. Do you have any love for ZJ this week?
Yeah, I don't mind ZJ. I mean, again, he's one of those guys that controls his ball flight, controls his position, and that's going to be important at this course. So I wouldn't rule him out. He could not make the cut, but he could also turn around and be top 10 going into the weekend. It just depends on how ZJ putts a lot of times. And he's a pretty good putter.
Yeah, I agree. And that actually leaves me with 9,500 and to our favorite golfer of the week in Patrick Reed. I'm playing him in cash and GPP, so that actually worked out as good as it could have. So that used all of my salary. I'll tell it to you again. 9,500, Patrick Reed. 9,200, Jim Furyk. We then have Russell Knox at 8,100, JT Poston at 7,900. Let's see, Sungjae M at 77 and Zach Johnson at 76. So if my lowest price golfer is Zach Johnson in cash, I am pretty okay with that. There we go, Mark.
That sounds good. While you were doing that, I was trying to do my GPP lineup so I could
just rattle it off.
Rattle it off for us.
Go right ahead.
So I started out, my highest price guy in there is Patrick Reed at 9,500. I don't mind going GPP with him as well. Like we said, there's not all these people aren't either one or the other. They can be in both. GPPs, you try to differentiate a little bit more and get some guys that maybe somebody else isn't going to play a whole lot. So as we go further down, I had the opportunity. I could stick with Louis Oosthuizen as my second choice. So I've got two top guys there in a GPP. Then I dropped down 8,700 to Ryan Moore. Further down to 7,900, I again went with one of the guys you went with, JT Poston, simply because even though it's a GPP, I want all my guys to make the cut. JT Poston makes the cut. Then I tried to mix it up a little bit with a couple of the guys that we talked about at 7,100, Trey Mullinex, and at 7,000, Roger Sloan. So that's mine. So if you want me to recap it, I can do that real quick. Patrick Reed at 9,500, Louis Oosthuizen at 9,300, JT Poston 7,900, and Brian Moore 8,700, Trey Mullinex 7,100, and Roger Sloan at 7,000. And I still have $500 left. So if you don't like that lineup, take that $500 and move it around.
Absolutely. Yeah, that $500 is crucial, guys. So you can either use it, you can not use it. One person I do want to mention who has good course history, and I can't decide. So Mark, maybe you can help shed some light on this character. It's Steve Stricker. And I just think with the Ryder Cup pressure, he's kind of going to take a relapse this season. Do you have the same thoughts on that? I mean, you saw it happen with Furyk last year. Do you think his focus is just being the captain of that, or do you think he's still focused on golf?
I think he's focused on that, but I actually think he's focused on golf. But he seems to me that he's more focused on the senior tour than he is this tour. So, yeah, he plays in tournaments here, but I don't think he comes into any of these tournaments expecting to win the tournament. And that's a key factor. Jim Furyk, like you showed last week, he comes into the tournament thinking he can win the tournament, whether it's a senior or this one. Stricker's not in that same boat, I don't think, at this point. And with the added pressure of the Ryder Cup, he'll prove me wrong, but I think I'm going to stay away from him this week.
All right. I think that's a great call. That's pretty much it. Check us out. Make sure you look at our articles, read them through. Don't just glance over them, guys. There are good tidbits in there, especially like my statistical report, making sure you're like checking the main stats, because you see a lot of the big names, that are up in those leaderboards in those stat models. I remember Rory was in, 5 at the top, like 6 stats I had last week, and he's in the top of leaderboards. Furyk was in there, and DJ was in there. Of course, obviously these big names are going to be in there, but there were some lower price guys. Benny On was in a lot, and he ended up scoring a lot. So don't just read what we're saying. Actually read, our stats, and read, his current form report. Little things like that, they add up, and take the best of both worlds. Me and Mark have different views on this, but that's what golf is. We don't have to have the same view because golf is a very different sport.
Yeah, and I started my approach a little bit with a little bit of a statistical model the last few weeks that isn't near as intense or as in depth as Al's is, but I changed my grouping a little bit this week, where I've put more weight on the last 2 weeks and the last week than I have the previous 13. But this week I changed that up and put more emphasis on the previous 13, because we're now, if not 13 weeks into the new season, we're close to it. So I'm starting to put more weight on the new season. At this point, what happened last season doesn't really matter. So you're going to see some statistical changes there too. So, and again, hit us up on Slack, hit us up on Twitter. We don't care if you tell us we're crazier than hell on some of the reasoning that we came up with. I mean, your logic might be better. You might help us. Might have talked us out of Casey and some other guys last week. But, that's just the way we were thinking. And don't take what we say as gospel. Just use what we give you, make your own decisions, and do what you can. I mean, we're not always right. You're not always going to be right, but you have all the information there, and you can get more information as we go.
That's right. Don't follow the crowd, guys. It happened last week. We fell into the chalk, and it kind of hurt us. So we're not going to do that again this week. Let's see some green screens. Mark, I will see you later, man. Take it easy.
All right, guys. Take care, everybody.